Hello, hello, and welcome once again, J76NY here, and we are continuing on with our adventures of Anton Rayne as the president of Swordland. Last episode, we had a little sit-down with our vice president and found out he was having some marital problems and was indeed sleeping with my secretary. I'm sure this is going to have some kind of consequences for the Rayne administration, and I do have a meeting with my chief of staff, Lucian. So we're probably going to have to do something about dear old Peter. Something I didn't notice last time I played was my economy is up to 2 bars instead of 1, so slight improvement there. We do have to start the day at the palace, so here we go. It was early in the morning after my talk with Peter. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon. The Maroon Palace was empty save for a few cleaning staff. I entered my office to find Lucian already waiting for me. Mr. President, thank you for meeting with me at this hour. I couldn't sleep anyways or cut to the chase. Very well, I'm pleased that you chose to call me after your conversation with Mr. Vecturn last night, although I was already aware of his illicit relationship with Miss Suno. Okay, I figured as much. You do know everything that goes on in the palace, or how did you find out? I'd like to know how he found out. Varies, tell me how you found out. On its own, given Mr. Vecturn's established reputation as something of a playboy, the affair is unlikely to cause much damage. However, a more troubling possibility has been brought to light. A recent conversation with Mr. Hailstone, our whistleblower from Rumburg, revealed the presence of a spy within the Maroon Palace. Oh boy. I believe Miss Suno is our mole. She has been using her relationship with Mr. Vecturn to gather information. Tell me more. I can do better than that, I'll show you. Lucian reached into his coat pocket, pulled out an audio tape, and fed it into the reel-to-reel machine on my desk. This was recorded at the palace at 1809 on the second day of your trade visit to Lesbia. He pressed play. I heard Peter and Livia's voices. You sure everyone's gone for the day? Relax, Liv. Nobody's working that hard with President stick up his ass off in Lesbia. Well, that's not very nice. Jesus, Peter. Livia giggled. I heard the sound of kissing, then of drinks being poured. Glad you stayed behind. Did he tell you how it's going over there? Do you think there's a chance they'll form an alliance? As a matter of fact, yes. He and Prime Minister Alvarez just sealed the deal. But enough work talk, Miss Suno. I want you bent over my desk. Now... trying to read this with my family standing behind me. Lucian grimaced and switched off the tape. That's it. That's your damning evidence. This is indeed cause for concern. And then what happened? Play the rest of the tape. That's indeed cause for concern. And that's not all. I found her resume on file, and there's a year-long gap between her finishing secretarial school and beginning her career. Normally, this would have been looked into, but Miss Suno was hired before a background check could be completed by one Peter Vecturn. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Livia opened it cautiously. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Galad. I didn't realize you'd be in so early. Can I get you some coffee? Wait for Lucian to say something. Coffee would be great. Close the door. Have a seat. Let's see. Should we let Lucian take the lead? Send her off to get some coffee, or confront her right now? Well, if she's a spy for Rumburg, we could maybe turn her into a double agent if the game has that option. Okay, so he did it anyway. There we go. Livia sat. She looked puzzled. Is something the matter? Enough pretending. Your secret's out. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Come on, Livia. Peter already told me everything. You know perfectly well. Livia, Lucian has evidence. Peter told me everything. Let's throw him under the bus. I'm so sorry, Mr. President. I was foolish, and Peter was so nice to me. But it's over now. Nobody ever needs to know. That's not what the President means, Miss Suno. We're referring to you being an intelligent agent for Rumburg. This actually kind of was what I meant, but whatever. She sat upright and looked shocked. Pardon me, Mr. Galad, but are you feeling okay? Don't play dumb, Livia, if that's your real name. He's fine. What do you have to say for yourself? Mr. President, I understand if you don't want me to keep my job, but why smear me with this outlandish accusation? Miss Suno, indulge me for a moment. What were you doing in the year 1951? Her face flushed. If you must know, I was working as a cigarette girl at Porto's. It's a Lackavian saloon. I was saving up so I could afford my own place in Holsort. Here's the proprietor's number if you need to double-check. She scribbled a telephone number on a piece of paper and Lucian snatched it up. Why have you been asking me so many questions about what I do? But why were you asking Peter about my alliances? Yeah, she has been kind of nosy. To tell the truth, Mr. Rayne, I was hoping to run for office myself someday. I want to make a real difference in the world, like Miss Morgana or Miss Walda. But I guess I messed that up by getting involved with Peter. Now they're all just going to say I slept my way to the top. And you're questioning Peter about Swordland's potential alliances? I told you, Wait, how'd you know about that? There was a loud pounding on the door. Peter barged in without waiting for an answer. He was unshaven and wore the same clothes as the night before. I came as soon as I heard the three of you were in. Anton, what the hell are you doing? I told you I had this under control. Sit down and shut up. I'm gonna play it a little harsh with Peter from now on. You kind of let his true feelings slip to his sugar mama there, so sit down and shut up, Peter. Peter took a seat on the far end of the sofa. He looked over at Livia and noticed her troubled expression. God, why involve her? This is my mess. She did nothing wrong. There's a small chance she could be a spy. What? The fuck? I have reason to believe she's been relaying information to Rumburg, information that you leaked to her in your carelessness. Lucian rewound his tape and played it again. As Peter listened, his eyes widened in disbelief. Lucian, you rat bastard! You've been bugging my office? Obviously for good reason. Both Peter and Livia were glaring at Lucian now. He looked unrepentant. I had noticed the Vice President's behavior becoming increasingly erratic and unprofessional over the past months. Alright. I wanted to get to the root of the cause. So you wiretapped your own goddamn colleague? And for what? Have you been getting off on this, you pervert? Okay. Certainly not. I believe that along with the Rumburg whistleblower's admission that there's a spy in the palace and certain gaps in Miss Suno's resume, this tape makes a compelling case to investigate the Secretary for Espionage. Whether or not the investigation yields positive results, Mr. Vecturn ought to be held accountable for his willingness to divulge such sensitive information. He ought to stand trial or at the very least resign. Peter's jaw dropped. Livia stood up. If I may, Mr. President, I've been paying attention to what goes on in the palace, not because I'm some sort of agent, but out of genuine interest. Hard as that may be for you to believe, Mr. Galad. And from what I've seen, this man has been attempting to undermine your vice president at every turn, perhaps with the goal of replacing Peter himself. I haven't seen anything suggesting that. Loyal to you, it's true, he never could stand me. Lucian frowned. My personal misgivings about Mr. Vecturn aside, I would never do anything to harm this administration. Mr. Vecturn, on the other hand, has at best committed adultery, and at worst delivered straight secrets straight into enemy hands. Who could I believe? Need to talk to you alone, bud. What are you gonna do? I believe you. We should investigate Livia. You're the strategist here, not me. You make the call. Honestly, I ought to fire you for surveilling Peter. I'm not investigating my own secretary. I won't play into your hands. I'm going to throw the ball in his court. Let him make the call. I already told you what we should do, sir. Investigate Miss Suno. Now, that's a good point. If word gets out that she is a spy, I'm going to look like an idiot. Alright, let's do it. I appreciate your trust in me. And Mr. Vecturn, what will you do about his willingness to compromise Swordland's security at the drop of a pencil skirt? Peter did what any man would do. You'd understand if you weren't such a... Can't do it. Sorry, can't do it. Workaholic. There. I'll settle that with him personally. He is my friend, after all, and I'm trying to be loyal to my friends. Well, very well. Just keep in mind you may need him to shoulder the blame for this. Lucian adjusted his tie. I'll apologize to Miss Suno and tell her this has all been a misunderstanding. We can't have her running away during an investigation. I'll do it myself. Very well, sir. I sat by myself for a while wondering what exactly I had set into motion. Okay. Now that little bit of drama is out of the way, get back to the business of running Swordland. Or not. Several days passed since I ordered the investigation into my secretary, Livia Suno. Sorry. Both Peter and Livia have been acting unnaturally nice to me, believing I'd let them off the hook for their affair. They seem to be avoiding each other in the hallways, though. I was just settling in behind my desk when Lucian knocked on my door. Sir, a moment of your time? Lucian entered my office and closed the door behind him. Our security team traveled to Lockhaven to speak to the owners of the pub Miss Suno named. They confirmed that one Livia Suno had worked there. Their description of her did not match that of your secretary. Oh boy. However, it did match that of an unidentified corpse that washed up in Lenkern Bay 2 months before your inauguration. Oh boy. There we go, that's a good response. Oh shit. Further investigation by our operatives in Rumburg matched Miss Suno's description to a woman named Ileana Vance, last seen graduating from Krimsrad Political Science Institute. Our whistleblower from Rumburg recognized the name Vance as belonging to a deeply embedded covert agent, although he had previously assumed it was a man. How could we have missed all of this? That lying two-faced succubus. How could we have missed all of this? As mentioned, Miss Suno was hired without a background check. It's possible this all could have been avoided had any of Mr. Vecturn's blood flown been directed to his brain when he selected her. But none of that can be helped now. The question is, what are you going to do, sir? What do you think I should do? A panty waist. This guy can really use a set sometimes. What do you mean? I'm going to murder them both? Okay. Wow. I'm going to have Peter castrated. Bloodthirsty Anton Rayne. I'm going to arrest her. That would be standard procedure. However, if we do so, it's only a matter of time before the media pieces together what happened. Easy. I'll get Marcel on it. I'll look like a fool for having her under my nose this entire time. Outwitted by a woman, I won't look good. What if there was no trial? Well, we could either go with Marcel and have him work as media wonders, or we can possibly have this handled. Let's have this handled. This should be fun. Then you, what exactly? Knowingly let her return to Rumburg? That would damage us even further if truth got out. You must remain in control of the narrative, Mr. President, starting by letting Petr Vecturn take the fall. This is my fault as much as his. I should have suspected something. No, I told you Peter did nothing wrong. I know you think you'd be a better vice president, but enough is enough. Okay, problematic is an understatement. Mr. Vecturn put you in danger by failing to order a background check on your closest personal staff. He betrayed your confidence to a woman with whom he was committing adultery, Anton. You do the same to your so-called best friend? What? Would you do the same? Alright, skip it. See here. He betrayed your confidence to a woman. Anton, would you do the same to your so-called best friend? I wouldn't. Lucian sighed. I am your chief strategist. I have advised you on what I believe is the best strategy, but of course the ultimate decision is yours. Man, this is a heartbreaking decision right here. I gotta throw my friend under the bus. But he did fuck up pretty seriously, so it's not really so much of him being a scapegoat as it is him being responsible for his own actions. I shall consult with our friend Mr. Caranti and write a statement for you to read at the press conference. I'll leave you to handle Miss Vance. Thank you. Lucian nodded and walked out. I called Carl Greiser from my desk and explained the situation. After a few minutes, I rang for Livia. Who is Carl Greiser? Oh, he's a cop. Right. She entered my office. Is there something you need, Mr. President? Please sit down. A barely perceptible flash of fear crossed her face. She sat. Why did you call me in here, sir? I nodded towards my office doorway. Carl Greiser was standing there along with two of his guards, blocking the entrance. Ileana Vance, you are under arrest on suspicion of espionage. Please come with me. Her eyes darted around the room. What the hell is going on, Mr. President? Have you let Lucian get to your head? I thought you were smarter than that. You're going to pay for the way you use Peter. I'll stay kind of a little loyal to my friend there. Even though he is a dumbass. You can't do this to me. Yeah, watch me. Peter, hearing her cries, rushed out of his office. Liv, what in the hell? Anton, what's going on? Her name's Ileana. Lucian was right about her. She's a spy. Livia, tell Peter who you really are. He's got to know she's a spy. No, they can't be true. Can it, Liv? I won't say another word without my lawyer present. She looked Peter square in the eye. Except this. You're a sad old drunk and a lousy lay. Jesus. Honestly, if I were a Rumburg spy, I'd barely have to do a thing. You two have Swordland ripe for the taking. She straightened up, ran a hand through her curls, and allowed Carl to lead her away. Peter sank to the floor in front of me. Anton, what the hell just happened? I'll tell you in my office. Feel free to take a moment first. Or no, you're making a scene. I shut the door and explained everything Lucian had told me about Livia. And you believed him? Well, better safe than sorry, especially after what she called me. At least we finally have this ordeal behind us. Let's get on with running the country, shall we? I have to tell you something first. Yeah, what is it? You look like shit. Why don't you take the rest of the day off? I'm gonna just send him home with a slap on the wrist, because if I try and get him to resign, this could blow up, and I'm trying to keep this quiet, so... Peter looked at me gratefully. Thanks, Anton. I do need a little time, but I promise it's going to be a whole new me from now on. I watched him leave. A whole new vice president. I didn't have the heart to tell Peter how right he was. Okay. So next up on the agenda, maybe something relating to Swordland. Press release for the affair scandal. It was the morning of Livia's trial, and hordes of reporters were gathered in front of the state courthouse. Peter, Lucian, and I stood by the entrance. Lucian had helped break the news of my secretary's arrest. Now the media was beginning to question exactly how a Rumburg agent had been able to infiltrate the Maroon Palace. It was time for me to deliver an explanation. A podium with a bank of microphones awaited us on the courthouse steps. Peter looked uncertain. I had told him I would be doing all the talking today. Remember what we talked about, Mr. President? How could I forget? I was about to blame my best friend for a scandal that would have otherwise shattered my administration, and Peter still had no idea. Together we stepped behind the podium. The reporters clustered around us and started shouting questions. Please settle down. As you are aware, let's see, these are our options. Livia Suno, former secretary to the president of Swordland, is currently being tried for espionage. As you are aware, Ileana Vance, the Rumburg spy who posed as my secretary, is currently on trial for espionage. Rest assured, the traitor shall be brought to justice. Rest assured, Rumburg will be made to answer for its latest affront to our great country. Traitor will be brought to justice. However, the fact remains that she should never have been allowed to infiltrate our administration in the first place. Allowed access to sensitive government, and that's goes without saying. She shouldn't have even been there. That she did can be directly traced to the carelessness of one man, Petr Vecturn. She did so by exploiting the weakness of Vice President Petr Vecturn. Sorry, Pete. The journalist gasped and murmured. Peter turned to face me, his mouth hanging open. Mr. Vecturn's willingness to put his own infantile desires over Swordland's security has made him a threat to the state. That's a little extreme. Mr. Vecturn's recklessness, to say nothing of his betrayal of Swordish values, has disgraced my administration. There we go. Therefore, the Vice President shall be trialed for his shameful actions against the state. If found guilty, he will be imprisoned. Take him. Therefore, the Vice President has tendered his resignation effective immediately, even though he didn't. I'm not going to put the guy in jail. I should, but I'm going to go with that one. The clamor of reporters was growing louder. Peter grabbed me by the collar and yanked me away from the microphones. And where is my bodyguards? What the hell, Anton? We never discussed this. It's for the good of Swordland. You'll understand someday. What else did you think would happen? Sorry, someone has to take the fall. What did you think was going to happen? Peter looked at me in disbelief, then shook his head. I guess I had this coming, the way I've been carrying on. I just didn't think my best friend would be the one to stick it, the knife. Wow, do I feel guilty about doing this, but... I mean, he had it coming. He created his own mess. He is not without blame in any of this, so... But still, the loyal friend in me says, dude, I had to do this. The reporters were becoming hard to ignore. One woman in the... Oh, you try that one again. One woman in the front row looked particularly insistent. Reporter. Mr. Vecturn, Let Peter take the question. I will be answering all questions on the Vice President's behalf. President Rayne, were you implying that Mr. Vecturn and the covert agent posing as your secretary were engaged in an intimate relations? Yes. Were you aware of this when it was happening? No. Lucian interjected. Neither the President nor the Vice President will be taking any more questions. Thank you. The reporters reluctantly dispersed. Lucian, Peter, and I looked at each other for what seemed like an eternity. Finally, Peter lowered his eyes. I guess I'll go to the palace and start packing my things. I'll come with you. Peter shook his head. I watched him descend the courthouse steps to his car, alone. Mr. Vecturn certainly made a scene, but it appears that you will make it out of this unscathed. Well, good for me. Of course, there's now the matter of replacing both your secretary and your vice president. You're a little too old to be my secretary, Lucian. I could crack a joke here. Currently I have a few candidates in mind. Very good, sir. We walked back up the steps to the courthouse to watch the rest of the trial. Okay. Codex entry added, Peter Vecturn. Let's see, order. Hang on, let's... He's still listed as the vice president, so... Alrighty. Can't imagine what the newspapers are going to be saying about this. Go through the newspapers first. Rumburg infiltrated Maroon Palace. President's secretary arrested. Breaking news from the Maroon Palace. Presidential Secretary Livia has been revealed to be a spy from Rumburg. Yep. President innocent in spy scandal, says Sordland today. At a press conference in front of the Holsword State Courthouse, President Anton Rayne vindicated himself in the recent Maroon Palace intelligence leak. He revealed that Vice President Peter Vecturn was responsible both for hiring Rumburg spy Ileana Vance, aka Presidential Secretary Livia and disclosing sensitive information. Lockhaven Times says President's secretary arrested for treason. The Radical says Rayne pins spy scandal blame on Vecturn. Faced with an intelligence leak that could irreparably damage his administration, Anton Rayne passed the buck to hapless VP Petr Vecturn, who was forced to resign during a press conference on the courthouse steps today. He accused Vecturn of hiring Presidential Secretary and Rumburg spy Livia without proper background check. His dismissal of Vecturn may satisfy some, but we are duty-bound to get to the bottom of this scandal. Okay, go for it. But right now, we need to pick a new vice president. It was here the day I'd been dreading since Peter's resignation. At the entrance to my office, my new secretary, Sylvia, took my hat and coat. She was a matronly woman in her 40s. She had a spotless background assisting various Maroon Palace officials. Replacing Livia had been easy, but replacing my vice president would be difficult. Swordish law dictated that if a vice president failed to complete his term, new candidates were to be put forward by members of the cabinet. After much deliberation, the list had been narrowed down to 3. Lucian Galad was the frontrunner, followed by Gloria Torre and Albin Clavin. She doesn't like me. It was up to me to decide who would fill Peter's shoes. I wanted to chat with them one-on-one before making my decision. I had just begun to settle at my desk when I heard a knock at the door. Lucian entered and perched on the chair across from me. Sir. You know why you are here. So, Vice President Galad, what do you think? One hell of a strategist, but why should I make you my VP? It is precisely in my capacity as strategist that I have evaluated the experience and capabilities of your potential Vice President. Objectively, I am by far the most qualified candidate. I would advise you not only to think about our long history together, but also the many crises I have helped shepherd you through. I won't say much beyond that. I believe my words speak for themselves. And I think that you should stay where you are because you have shepherded me through many crises. Which is option number one, so we'll go with that. As Vice President, my ability to serve you in this administration will only increase. He got up from his chair. I expect you will make the right decision. He left my office. Just a minute later, there was another knock at the door, and Gloria Tori came in. Mr. President. I must say I was not surprised at all when my name was put forward. Oh, let's see, what do I want to go with this? Why should I pick you? To put it simply, what I bring to the table is years of experience. I've been a member of the Assembly for almost 20 years, and I spent 7 years as its Speaker. This alone speaks for itself. As you know, I am also the leader of the conservative wing of the party. You can see what I'm getting at. You tell me what you're getting at. I will be blunt. Being the leader of the conservative wing means that if I am vice president, we would have more votes. Okay? This would allow us to pass bills far more easily, especially if those bills are aligned to my block's causes. Jesus. I will think about it. I want you to know that I value order over everything else, Mr. President. Being the Speaker of the Assembly requires principles, nerves like steel, and a determination to uphold proper conduct. You can expect to see the same of my vice presidency. Yeah, you being a woman could also prove advantageous. Not just any woman, a strong woman, who was able to protect order in a room full of unruly men for 7 years. Think about the message it would send. The first woman vice president of Swordland. No. The first woman vice president in the whole continent. What support you would lose among traditionalists, you would gain tenfold among Swordish women. She's got a good point. There is much to gain from selecting me, Mr. President. I believe you will make the right choice. Friends closer. Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. There is much to gain, I will consider it. Have a nice day, Mr. President. Gloria made her way out. A minute later, there was another knock at the door. This time it was Albin Claven's turn, who we just looked at is the member of the Grand National Assembly, member of the USP, and regarded to be the leader of the progressive faction of the party. Greetings, Mr. President. It was a great honor to have been chosen as a candidate. Really terrific. I will be straightforward. Why should I pick you? As you know, I represent the reformist wing of the party. What Swordland needs today is not only to catch up to our more modern neighbors, but to surpass them. I believe we can do that. No, I am sure. However, this will only be possible if we set aside our differences and unite as one. That is the outlook I wish to bring to the position of Vice President, so that Swordland can excel and soar to new heights. I like it. Thank you. The fact is, if I am Vice President, reformist members of our party will be more likely to support you in your causes. This will smooth the passage of bills, like it did the reform package, and help move our administration and our country forward in record time. That makes sense. What this country needs is more dynamic, youthful leadership. Look at you, President Rayne. You became the youngest member of the Assembly and completely rejuvenated Swordish politics. I want to do the same. Need to be able to take risk to make gains, and that is only possible with a forward-looking perspective, which is completely in line with what I have kind of played this as, moving the party and the country forward. So I am leaning very heavily towards Mr. Klavan here. I will consider what you said. He got up and left. I leaned back in my chair thinking about the pros and cons of each of my vice presidential candidates. I could almost hear Peter's voice in my head, laughing at the absurdity of my situation. But of course, he wasn't there. Alright. We are going to fill the vice president. Let's see. Going through each of them, Lucian has been a very valuable asset and a trusted advisor. Gloria Tori has not always been has never really been my friend, but she did make a good point about having her being the first female vice president of Swordland. I just worry that she could be doing things behind my back to further her own agenda. I don't think she would be as willing to work with me towards my goals as she says she is. But this whole thing, I've been trying to push for a more, I don't want to say futuristic Swordland, but I want to push the party past the staleness of the past, I guess you could say. And I've always said that if the party has to change to do that, it's about time. I'm going to go with Albin Klavan. Albin Klavan has been selected as the next vice president of Swordland, and we have no news. The news does not want to report on that in one bit, which is surprising. So that was a very interesting episode. Honestly, wasn't expecting to have to get rid of Petr Vecturn, but like I said, he did make his own mess, and actions have consequences, so he is out. Anyway, if you liked this episode, hit that like button. If you would like to come along with us as we take drastic steps to shape Swordland's future, hit the subscribe and you can come along with us. Leave your thoughts, tips, and advice in the comments below, and we will see you for the continuation of President Anton Rayne and his new vice president, Albin Klavan. J76NY saying thank you very much for watching, and have yourself a very good day.